Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
We're so pleased to have on an award-winning singer, songwriter, actor, producer, and also visual artist, Sophie B. Hawkins. Sophie, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Eric. I'm so happy to be here.
So I've really enjoyed, the brand new album that you put out is just incredible with so many good songs on it. It's you've had a couple singles come out earlier, but it's hard to pick my favorite song on here from your new album.
Well, okay, so if you had to, which one would you pick?
I think the first track, the love song, is probably my favorite. Yeah, Love Yourself is my favorite. And then I'll be honest with you, I love the piano work on the balloon song at the end of it.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's an amazing song. You Are My Balloon. That one I wrote really I was starting to write when my daughter was coming out, physically being birthed. And then I was literally in the hospital. I have pictures of me in the hospital where, she's about to come out and I have the guitar on and I'm writing the song. And then she came out pretty quickly, but the song took a little while, took a couple more weeks.
It took longer to birth.
Yeah, well, songs are, I think, such a process because to me, every song will have a couple of mediocre songs before it, So like I just wrote a song recently and my friends will call, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm writing a song. And then I never want to talk about the process because I know that if I like what I'm writing, it's going to end up being in the trash the next day. It takes me about 4 or 5 mediocre songs, which I think are great in the moment, to arrive at the good one. And I just have to be patient and it's like a spiritual exercise.
Well, and how did you come up with the title for this new album also?
Free Myself?
Yes.
Oh, man. The title is making more and more sense. All of my work makes sense as I go. It's a little ahead of me and I grow into it. And I would say that for all of my stuff. Free Myself, well, there's a song called Free Myself on the album, and it is one of my favorite songs. And then the whole sense of this is it's taken me a little over 12 years to get a new album out. And it's not like I haven't been working. I have been, but I haven't. It's like I had so much to deal with. A lot of us do all the time. But I'm one of these people that this was the time of my life where it's almost like as if I was in the middle of the earth and I had to crawl out. And then when I finally saw the pathway, it was like flying through the hole of a needle. I said, I'm doing it. And it feels like I'm not dealing with all the oppression that I've dealt with in a lot of my life. And I'm not even talking the record industry. We all, we what's that great phrase? We live once in our childhood, the rest is memory. I don't agree with that, but there are aspects of that's true. You're a child and everything is so real and so authentic. And then the rest of our lives, we're trying to capture what was real and authentic and build a new life that's real and authentic and meaningful. And so this is the point where I'm at. I've got 2 incredible children. I'm releasing this album after such a long period of heartache and turmoil, and I feel free. I feel it's not about fighting obstacles now. It's really about just aligning with good people, transcending my own baggage, and trusting that this is real. I'm actually enjoying this.
Well, that's what I thought about the album too, Sophie. Listening to all the tracks, and there's so many great songs on here, but I felt that it was also some of them were semi-autobiographical. And I could certainly relate to a lot of them. And, you came off a huge tour back in 2019 before the pandemic, and certainly with your wealth of songs and everything you've created over the years. But I really enjoyed, that you would bounce from a more guitar driven song to a more, piano driven song. They all kind of stand alone.
Yes, they do stand alone. And that's really right. And I do have to definitely, the modern word is curate. With each album, I have to curate because there are so many songs to choose from. And some of them may have been written way before, but they fit this album. By the way, I just found a song written in 1987, and I just found it on these old demos because all my songs start as demos in my room. Whatever instruments I have to record them now, it's Pro Tools, and it was 8 tracks or 4 tracks or whatever. So I found this old song and I said, man, this song, this fits now. I can't wait to record this now. It's such a happy song. And that's how it is. Yes, they all stand alone because I write them to stand alone. I want every song to be classic. And unfortunately, not every song is, but at least I try.
Yeah, and I've always been impressed too with your artistry to where, you play the majority of the instruments. It's like on your last album, I think you were trying to make the flugel into the next guitar because on the crossing you had that. And then I remember, years ago with the banjo, wanting that included in the song, which I think many people in Nashville can relate to your inclusion of the banjo.
Yes, it's so funny. People still are hearing that story and they're still interested in it because it's also symbolic. First of all, the banjo, I mean, that was invented by Americans. It's the only instrument invented in America by people who were slaves at the time. And so I think it represents an instrument that really speaks of the journey to freedom, and that we have to really cherish it. And that Sony Music said it can't be on pop radio. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is like the most American pop instrument. Really, when you think about the history, so many great pop songs were written and played on the banjo, but that was just their thing then. I'm glad I stuck up for the banjo. It totally changed my career.
But also it allowed your artistry. You were able to pursue your artistry in a more freer form.
Right, you're right. I'm minimalizing it, like I'm trying to make it symbolic. It's like symbolic, the banjo is symbolic, but it was about, at the end of the 90s, and that's when I had to sue Sony to get my master's back. At the end of the 90s, the business was changing from an artist-driven business completely to a corporate business where every artist had to write with 10 producers, and you just didn't know. Nothing had an identity for a while. It's come back now to being singer-songwriter driven, but it was a really dark time in a way. And then with Napster and all that, we didn't see it coming. In a way, it was a blessing and a curse. And I think it's now more of a curse, by the way, the whole interest thing.
Well, I wanted to bring up too, and I know it's been, 11 years since you reprised the role, but, I so enjoyed it when you were doing the Janis Joplin, when you were performing that and doing all of that music, and how, I think what I appreciated was the depth that you went, to understanding Janis's music, to where, on the beats that she would hit and everything, and certain, just her artistry, and which is, sometimes, once again, minimized. She's just seen as this rock icon, but, musically, she was so far ahead of her time. And with Room 105, you got to go out and actually perform Janis's music, from going in depth and studying who she listened to.
Yes, it was amazing. I actually went back to when she was about 9. Her mother was an opera singer. Her mother was a coloratura soprano, and she taught Janis to be a coloratura soprano. And Janis and her mother only didn't want to be on Broadway and stuff because she thought it was too sinful. So Janis had this incredible nurturing relationship with her mother, and the tragedy of it, and I think this is the biggest tragedy for Janis Joplin, is that her mother rejected her when she found her own voice. I wrote songs as Janis Joplin, and someday I cannot wait to release those demos. If I'm too drunk to walk, put me in the car, I'll drive. I wrote that song because my band thought it was real Janis demos, because like you're saying, I researched her history, her relationships, her relationship to music, how she developed. And then I got an insight as a musician, as a songwriter, into how she found her voice. Now, I do know the secret of how she actually found her Janis voice, and I'm not giving it away here, and only because I do hope to sell books someday of my memoir, and I know that no one's ever written this about Janis, and I really do think I found the key to her vocal style. And the musical Room 105 was so good because it actually went in depth with her mother, not in terms of time on the stage, but in terms of impact. There was these impactful moments, and Janis's greatest heartbreak was her mother's rejection of her, and she never got to make it right because of her untimely death, and it was an accidental death. And it's just so tragic, it gives me chills.
Well, and that gives me a nice little segue into how is the Playsicle coming along?
Oh, it's just so great. It's my favorite thing. So I'm putting out the album, and I have to focus on that. And and then I have this memoir in the works and I have to focus on, but I'll tell you something, whenever I have a moment, and I'm having the moment this week to go back into the Playsical and edit it and, you know, put it to its next best level, maybe write another song. I think they're my favorite characters in the world. I just love working on it. It's totally original. I'm writing the book and the music. It's a very small cast. It's a very intimate play, and it's very powerful. And so how is it coming? It's coming great. I cannot wait till that goes up, but it has to be after this album.
Yeah, I just think it's amazing because I know that that's going to be very semi-autobiographical also,
Yeah,
Sophie.
it is going to be, and but you know, they're all semi-autobiographical, but they all do incorporate my imagination of what could be, my hope, my dreams. It's funny about autobiographical because when you say it, you know, I'm in constant relationship with my brother and sister. You know, what I think is true isn't what someone very close to me thinks is true. And you start to wonder about the nature of autobiography, having been studying them now because of writing the memoir. It's like even people who write great and hit autobiographies go back and change. They start to remember things differently over time. Right. So all autobiography is still story. Let's just face it. We try our best to tell the truth, but God knows what the truth is sometimes.
Well, and it has to be from our own perspective. And I wanted to bring up too, you know, so many people know you, Sophie, you know, once again, gold and platinum records, you know, and not only in the US, but in the UK, huge in Europe. But you started out at 4 years old as a drummer.
Yeah, but like, I don't want people to think I was any kind of prodigy. I have pictures of me holding the drums and everything, but I never really got to play them till I was 14. I asked for lessons constantly. And my parent, you know, in those days, parents just didn't get up and do anything for you. They just let you run, you know, they let us run wild. So I didn't actually play the drums till I was 14 years old. And that I started with African drumming.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah. So I did technically start touching an instrument and playing, learning and practicing at 14. And then it really got going. And then I went to Manhattan School of Music for percussion, which was a tremendous amount of work because I had to play the grand marimba and vibraphone and the timpani. And that was a huge, so between 14 and 17, when I graduated high school, I had to become a complete classical musician. It was so much work, Eric. Yeah.
But then you became a percussionist in a band.
Yes, I did. I played drums for the Pink Men, was my favorite band. I played for a million bands in the city, but the one that I loved the best was called the Pink Men. And because they let me do my own songs, and they used to apologize for my singing. When they'd say, we're giving her singing lessons, which is the irony is that then I became Sophie B. Hawkins and nobody ever heard of them, but that doesn't matter. I really love them. And then Brian Ferry, I was his percussionist and he fired me.
I was going to bring that up, but it's one of those things to where it struck me on that, Sophie, because it's like his firing you because you weren't a Cuban drummer catapulted you.
Yes, because that's when I think the story goes that I was a co-check at the time, and his fired me. That's when Damn I Wish I Was Your Lover came out. That's when that happened. And I realized that there was no reason to pursue my career as a musician. I had to commit completely to songwriting.
Well, you know, I love it too, that, you know, and I can't wait to read the book when you come out with it and obviously come to the Playsical. But, you know, I love the concept of where, you know, giving the mixtape, you know, to Mark Cohen. And it's like how that ended up going through so many hands. And all of a sudden you have all these labels wanting you to come on board. And so you went from being fired from a band as a drummer, working at a coat check, and then you're in demand as a songwriter.
Yes. And, you know, being the mother of kids, in my perspective now is that there's so much pressure on children now. Like they say that we don't worry about kids drinking or doing other things because they're basically rule followers now. But the problem is getting them out of the house to take risks is really difficult. Right. And so what I learned, and I learned this strangely enough from Megyn Kelly's memoir, she said her parents put zero pressure on her and that she really appreciated it because that let her find her way. I'm just saying that I didn't take the firing from Brian Ferry as a negative because there was no one around me telling me it wasn't negative. I really went within myself and said, well, that's good. I wasn't meant for that. Now let me do something I really want to do. So that was my internal voice. It wasn't a struggle then to make that choice. And by the way, when Mark Cohen left, he literally just left my demo tape on a desk. And it was dear old Ralph Shuckett, who's passed away, who picked it up and put it on his Walkman in the subway back to Brooklyn. And he heard the whole album of Tungsten Tales in demo form. And he called me up and said, you should be making records. And I was like, really?
Isn't that so amazing though? It always surprises me, you know, and once again, you took that, you know, the firing in the right way, but it seems like when some of these doors close, we're like kind of shocked, but then they close for a reason so that other doors open.
Yes, they do. And we have to really get off each other's back and let people just be. It's just, our world has turned nuts with the pressure. And
well, you know, a positive, I got to bring this up also, and I commented before we started the interview, I love the painting behind you, you know, in your spare time between, you know, your new album, working on the book, working on the Playsicle, you're going to have an art show, you know, again, with all of your great paintings. How did you get into painting?
So painting isn't something I've studied, but it is something that I love to do just for the sake of being out in nature and being quiet. And I guess, you know, all in all, that's my favorite thing, Eric, is just to be in a position of listening and observing. And so painting allows me to do that. So whatever comes out, comes out. To me, it's an excuse just to be creative in that sort of spiritual, observant way. And with songs, I always do feel I want to write the best song, blah, 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 blah. It would be with me whether or not I had been successful. But painting's always been something that is just so relaxed, no pressure. And I always tell my kids that when I grow up, I really want to be a painter. Why?
But, you know, I think that's the great thing as a creative too, Sophie, is that you have all these outlets, you know, just like, you know, the great role of Janis, which I know a lot of people would like to see you reprise that again. But, you know,
I'd love to.
With the new album and with the book and with the painting and with your own play, it's like you have so many creative outlets and muses that you get to follow. And then your fans and all of us get to listen to them and see them. And so we get to enjoy it not only, you know, audio wise, but visually.
Yes, and I do hope that I help people have the courage to follow their own voice, like listen to it and do their own outlets. I think if there's one reason I'm on earth, it is because I enjoy doing it. But it does always make me happy when someone comes up and says, you inspired me to do this. You inspired me to do that. You know, we're only on earth for a short minute, and we have to realize that no one's going to give us these chances to do what we want to do, what we desperately want to do. We have to take it. We have to carve out those moments.
Well, and you haven't rested on your laurels either, Sophie. You've also used your platform of music and all the great things you've accomplished, you know, for your causes as well. And, you know, I certainly remember, you know, the Sea Turtle documentary.
Oh, yes, the Turner. Can you find that online?
I don't know, but I remember when you were involved with that, and, you know, and it's like, besides, you know, obviously with so many other, with environment and with children's causes and voting and so many great causes that you've lent your voice to, and some artists just don't do that, and you are very passionate about those things also.
I'm so passionate, especially about the environment, especially about animals and children. I mean, I do dip into other things, but the most eternal, like I said, with painting, is being outside, being in nature, protecting the planet is major for me. I compost, recycle to death. I'm in the sustainable group here in town. You know, that's very important to me, Eric. It's lifelong.
Well, and it's such an amazing thing too, that, you know, you not only speak it, but you live it, Sophie. And I want to make sure also for our viewers and everything that they know, you know, for all the great things that you have going on, you know, with the brand new album out, you know, with the book pending, with your play that you're working on, with your incredible paintings, where should our viewers go for website, social media, everything Sophie B. Hawkins?
Okay, go to sophiebhawkins.com. And they won't see any paintings for a while because we're reworking that, but they'll see everything else.
And so you're saying that we might see an exhibit coming up in the next year or so?
Yes, I'm really, maybe that would be wonderful to do with the release of the next Maybe in this one, why not in spring or summer? I've never done one, so I don't know the logistics of going around with your painting, but it would be sure fun. And maybe doing a concert. And I've always wanted to do that and exhibit and play also my music. And that'd be really lovely. Good cheese. I love
Exactly.
cheese.
Maybe a little wine sampling while you're
Little
looking at
wine
this.
and
Yeah, and
cheese,
you
some
could be over in the
almonds.
corner playing the guitar, have your music
Yes.
playing.
Some olives. That would be so different from everything I've done, you know?
It's like you're completing the whole circle of creativity with all of this. I just love it, Sophie.
That'd be neat.
Well, I'll tell you what, it is such an incredible album, and I want to make sure that our viewers, however they consume music, whether it be through digital and all the other formats that you're going to offer it, that they get your brand new album, Free Myself. All the songs are great. You're going to have more videos coming out, working on the book, the Playsicle, and obviously the wonderful artwork. Sophie B. Hawkins, thanks for joining the show.
Thank you so much, Eric. You've been so kind.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.